Guys, I knew it back in 1994 when I saw Angels in the Outfield that kid was going someplace. Don John is directed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, written by him, and starring him as well. This is his directorial debut. It also stars Tony Danza, Scarlett Johansson, and Julianne Moore. Now, this movie is basically about the ultimate man. He's a bartender. You don't really see him at work too much. You just know what he does. But he loves girls. He's constantly at the bars. He's always sleeping with random women. And he's also kind of addicted to pornography. And when he finally meets a girl that he might actually connect with in Scarlett Johansson, this pornography thing becomes kind of a difficulty with him as he's trying to figure out how to have an actual relationship while in the midst of this fantasy world that he's sort of had himself encased in for a really long time. But it's not just that one simple plot that he's trying to get used to a normal relationship, having been used to a sort of fantasy view of it in the past. There's a lot more happening in this movie. There's a great commentary on the way men and women view love and how both of them have a sort of fantastical view of it just through different mediums and different forms of entertainment. And this movie has a lot to say about that, but it also has a lot to say about relationships and human nature in general. And this is definitely one of my favorite films of the entire year. I cannot believe how great this movie is. This movie not only looks great and is directed with a lot of flair and confidence, but the script is so interesting and hilarious and really real. I don't think I've ever agreed more with the character's opening monologue for a film. I mean, everything out of this guy's mouth, I was like, yep, that's true. Yep, that's how I feel. Yep, that's how it is. See, you could call this movie a romantic comedy, and it could be billed as that, but it's not. It has certain elements that 50-50 had, where it had some really serious tones in there, and some really heartwarming things, and some really effective elements as well. Some very seriously powerful stuff, but it's also very lighthearted and funny at the same time. And it's so fast-paced because the style of directing that Joseph Gordon-Levitt chose for this movie, which is edited so well with terrific use of sound and imagery to really boost the feeling that you get from this movie, because yes, it's a movie about a guy who's addicted to porn and he's trying to have a normal relationship, but it's nothing really about that. That is just the central plot. That's what the back of the Blu-ray will say. This movie has so much to say about the way people act when they're in a relationship, or about the way that men tend to get really all excited about pornography when it is just sort of a fantasy of sorts where it's not real. But it also shows the way that women can get really into these huge fantastical movie romances that are so unrealistic and will never happen. It's the exact same thing for two different genders. It's just that they're different forms of entertainment, and one is more graphic, so to speak. But it's really the same thing, and this movie explores that beautifully, and I loved that about this movie. It was so clever, and it's the kind of movie that a guy can go to and think, man, I'm kind of a dick. And it's the kind of movie that a girl can go to and think, man, I'm kind of a bitch. It just reveals all these truths about men and women and how we interact with each other that it really floored me, honestly. Like, I was so impressed with the script of this film. It was so well written. Also, some terrific supporting roles in this movie. For one, Tony Danza as Joseph Gordon-Levitt's dad in this movie is awesome. He is so good as this dad who, he loves football. He loves the basics. He's a real man's man, but he's so good in this movie. Like, I didn't look at him and see Tony Danza. I was afraid when I saw him on the cast list. I was like, really? Tony Danza? That's interesting, because they also work together on Angels in the Outfield. It's kind of funny to see them in this movie again almost 20 years later. I find that very, very cool, actually. But he was so good in the movie. And another really good supporting role was Julianne Moore. She played a student at the school that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was going to. She was great in the movie. She really added a lot to the film. A really important role, really, and I thought she did a great job in the movie. This movie defies genre conventions. It avoids cliches at all costs. In fact, it is an all-out assault on romantic cliches, very much so like 500 Days of Summer was. And I really, really like what Joseph Gordon-Levitt is doing with his career. He is definitely one of the best talents working in the industry today. I love Don John. I thought it was a very sweet movie, extremely funny, but also very real and heartwarming in a good way. Not in a cheesy way, but you watch the movie and you really feel like, yes, I can completely relate to these characters and these situations because I've experienced this before, or I know someone who has. And that's what the best types of stories are in movies, where you feel as if you can relate to these people, you forget you're watching a movie. And that's all I ask for in a movie. Can you maybe give me 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever, where I actually feel invested to the point where I care about the people on the screen? And Don John for sure does that. It has a lot to say about relationships, about romance, and it's just a really entertaining movie at the same time. I'm going to give Don John an A+. don't have any problems with this movie. It's fantastic. I can't wait to pick it up on Blu-ray. It is definitely one of my favorite films of the year. When Don John comes out in late September, definitely go check it out, guys. It is pretty awesome. So thanks very much for watching, guys. What's your favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie? I'm interested in knowing. And what are your thoughts on Don John when you eventually do see it? I know it has screened at a lot of festivals, so if you have seen it, what'd you think of it? Did you enjoy the film? As always, guys, thanks very much for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.